Hey viewers, Lorenzo here. This is KSP Next episode 4, where we scramble to get some money in the coffers to orbit. Because as we left last episode, we had enough technology and enough design skills to design a rocket that we think is capable of orbiting. But we need some more cash to actually build it, and this poses a dilemma that we don't have the means to do the high sounding rocket contracts, nor do we have capsules, and nor do we have the inclination to build planes. So I've constructed an amalgamation of a plane, capsule and a rocket, and we're gonna try and achieve some crewed milestones, thinking mostly, well, first crewed flight is one, and some altitude and some speed records. Now, important to note is that this has been simulated with the last cache we had. It's been proven to be somewhat safe, and the life support systems are redundant. That means there is 2 sets of 2 parachutes, and in this program I want to basically try and focus a little bit on crew safety. That's why we have 4 parachutes after we strap a person on top of what is basically a V2 rocket. And maybe the universe is kind to Jebediah as well, because on the first launch attempt the rocket immediately fails. It does so non-catastrophically, there's not an explosion, but there will not be a liftoff today. Now fortunately a failure on the launch pad is actually not that big a setback, because you can recover the craft and get most of your funds back. So we build another one and off we go again. Hopefully the engine will light this time. Actually that's the first time I've had an engine fail on me on the launch pad. Let's see how it goes the second time. There it goes, throttling up. It seems fine. Here we go, getting a nice kick off the launch clamp, and the way we steer this is through rotation, because the cockpit is actually not symmetrical and produces a not insignificant amount of lift. Therefore, in between transmitting crew reports, you can see Jebediah yanking on the stick, trying to, well, steer this V2, this manned V2 rocket by tilting the capsule down. This looks safe, wouldn't you agree? I would. Let's see, we are aiming for basically any altitude that will... We're just trying to go as fast and as high as we can. Now there was a contract in the contracts window for exceeding supersonic speed, or going supersonic, and we are currently going supersonic. Nevertheless, I have not accepted this contract, because it stipulates that the capsule be supersonic for at least 1 minute, which is hard to do with an unthrottleable engine without either burning up or going so high that you crash on return. So here we are, the engine has burned out. We were traveling at a good Mach 3-ish, and now we're gonna plummet back to the ground, but not before transmitting back some beautiful science data and some very scared reports. See, there we are, coasting. This is basically our apoapsis, so we're going to ditch the V2, and we now just have our cockpit, which is plastered with parachutes. Jebediah will hopefully be fine. It's going to fall back down to the ground, and then we shall deploy his parachutes. You can see he's spinning pretty uncomfortable. At least I don't think that looks comfortable. That looks is about the most nauseating descent I could imagine. So here goes the first 2 parachutes, and they are staggered in case that 2 of them could snap off or fail to deploy or malfunction or whatever, or even staggered them 4 ways. So we've got 4 parachutes deployed, and that gently bobs Jebediah down to the surface. Now a quick look into the space program's checking account now teaches us that we've got enough funds to build the Monstro class rocket that we've got here. Look at the circled amount. The rocket cost 13,326, and we've got 13,398. So let's go ahead and order one of these 3-stage orbital machines. Here I have a peek at the satellite contract. We're not going to accept that quite yet, because this orbital booster hasn't been proven, but what we do have in the garage is one of the old sounding rockets, so we can accept the medium sounding rocket contract to get a little bit more money in the bank. Maybe not enough to build a whole new interesting rocket with, but perhaps enough to do a simulation so we can get some flying expertise with this Monstro machine. Now, we've seen this quite a few times before in the previous episodes. This is the RD-103 engine that's lifting what's basically a modified World War II era rocket booster. So here comes the stage separation at an altitude of about 60 kilometers. The contract was for 190, and this is well within the capabilities of this rocket. This is the familiar upper stage fueled by, what is it, UDMH. Actually, I don't know what that chemical is like, but here we have stage burnout, or almost burnout, because even on a routine mission like this, the AJ-10 engine just cannot resist failing just to rub it in. And this is one of the biggest problems in these early rockets. The engines are just rated for very, very small burn times. So you have the tanks, you have the engines, but it's hard to build a rocket that's gonna burn for long enough. Nevertheless, we tried. Here we are with the Monstro 1. This is the rocket that is currently under construction, and we are here simulating the launch. Now, for those of you that don't know the Kerbal Construction Time plugin, this is a plugin that simulates time required to construct rockets, and this rocket booster, I think it took about 200 days to build, and actually that's still going on. But for a fraction of the price, and obviously no build time, you can simulate rocket launches. And this ties into the cash management aspect of the space program. Nothing that you do in a simulation actually counts. I mean, the UIs will update, you'll get contract notifications, but upon exiting the simulation, all of that is erased. And you get like a good 15 minutes to test out your rocket. Now, I've reduced the time we need to 8 minutes because we didn't have the money to afford anything else. And as we see here in the simulation, the game is throwing us a engine out scenario. And I quickly react by disabling the engine opposite to it, so we can at least maintain stability. But this is a problem. You can see there's quite a few engines. I think it's 13 engines, 12 in the outer ring, 1 in the center. And this gives it good engine out capability. As you can see, the rocket is still ascending, still stable. But as we designed the Monstro booster to basically burn right up to the edge of reliability for these RD-103 engines, disabling engines means the other ones take longer with their fuel and enter the very unreliable, very dangerous burn through time. Basically, that just means burning them through their rated cycle, and that exponentially increases the failure rate. This is what we were seeing in the first episodes. I didn't understand it then. Burning your engine for too long makes them fail pretty much certainly. Doesn't seem to be too much of a problem for this go one. We had the one failure and the one shutdown to compensate, and so far the first stage is performing well. We're looking at burnout at about 80 kilometers at a speed of just over 2 kilometers per second. I wouldn't say that's halfway to orbit because we need to shoot for about 8 kilometers per second, but delta V wise it is, well, it's still not halfway to orbit, but a good way there. We're out of the thick part of the atmosphere. We're just leaning on the second and the third stages now, and they're pretty they're pretty simple. It's got the same engine, just one of them, and a tank fitted to a burn time of about 2 minutes and 10 seconds, which is what it's rated for. And this stage happens without any durability or reliability problems. So we're now up to about 5 kilometers per second, and we still have the whole third stage left, which carries by itself 3 kilometers per second of delta V, which it will deploy in 2.5 minutes, which is about 15 seconds over its rated maximum. Still, we're having our fingers crossed, and we hope we will make it this time. Don't forget, this is a simulation. If we do make it, nothing is gained, rather except for some confidence in the rocket that's currently in production. I am aware that it's a little bit lopsided process-wise to first order the rocket and then simulate it, but this is what we had money for. We had to get something down to the engineers in the factories. Let's see. Incidentally, by the way, technology is also being researched in parallel in the R&D center to unlock some more powerful and better improved versions of the engine. So in the future, everything is going to be better and easier, as it always should be for any given future. So here we are. Third stage is about halfway done. Everything is still looking nominal. We have 2 kilometers per second of delta V left in there, and our current speed is at about 6,500 meters per second. Everything is still looking go for orbit. So if this works out, well, even if it doesn't work out, we're going to try and make it work. In the next episode, we're going to launch the actual version of the Monstro 1, named for its humongous size, of course. Hopefully that will put something into orbit upon which we'll be in a situation where we have 0 money, or I think 76 credits, but we would have an orbital proven booster. Then we can accept the contract for going to orbit, which would give us, upon acceptance and completion, like over 200,000 funds, and that would kickstart our program way further. We could research capsules and try to start our manned space program, get some people in the air and space, and get them home again safely with redundant safety systems if all goes well, and then onwards and onwards all the way up to a manned return mission to Mars, which is, of course, what we want. And this telltale camera change, which has just happened, indicates a orbital insertion. Here we see it, the apoapsis is high, the periapsis is lower, but outside the atmosphere. So here, at least in simulation land, we have an orbital rocket. Yay! Unfortunately, it is simulation land, not the real world as simulated by the game. Yeah, there's some simulationception going on here. So fingers crossed that next episode, the actual version of this booster doesn't suffer any catastrophic failures. Hopefully, the engines will perform just as they did in the simulation. We've demonstrated engine out capability, and hopefully next episode we will cash that contract and, well, win the space race against no one. Hope to see you then. I'm Lorenzo. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.